I was talking to the actor Brian Cox recently, who described Timothy McVeigh as a person disappointed with life. Were you at Mr. McVeigh's execution recently?
No, he invited me to be a witness. And I was all set to go the first time, and there was a stay of execution, and I thought, well, it'll be several months before they do it again. And of course, they were in a great hurry to kill him, and I didn't get a chance to go out to Terre Haute, Indiana. But he was not disappointed in life. He was a great success. He was a model soldier. He got the Bronze Star for heroism in the Gulf War. The Army was dedicated to him, and he to the Army. He was probably in a secret unit of the Army when he got back from the Gulf War. Anyway, they were eager to keep hold of him. Then he got in with the militia people who hate the federal government. These are mostly farmers who've lost their farms to big agriculture. And after Waco and Ruby Ridge, where the federal government went in and murdered people, he decided that he would declare war on the government. He had a lot of like-minded people with him. We don't know how many, but I've got a good bit of evidence accumulated, which I'll be talking about next week on CNN.
What was your interest within the event?
He started writing me letters in 1998 when I had written a piece in Vanity Fair about the shredding of our Bill of Rights by the federal government. Year by year, we lose more of our rights. And last November, we lost the right to elect a president from the Supreme Court. Gave the election to the loser, George Bush, and the winner by 500,000 votes, Albert Gore, was denied the presidency the people had elected him to. This is a government out of control. He wanted to go to war. He did go to war. He thought there would be a wake-up call to the country. Instead, our poisonous media decided that he was going to be a vicious, bad person who wanted to kill people because he was a sadist, like killing little children. He never knew that there were any children in the building, and he may well not have set the bomb. We're fairly positive he didn't know how to make one. And 5 other people were involved at Lake Gary where the bomb was made and put on the truck, which then went to Oklahoma City and so on.
Staying with politics, you once said that Reagan's popularity was based on the manipulation of television. Do you think Bush is receiving the same treatment?
It won't do any good because he can't act. Ronald Reagan was a superb actor. It's nonsense his being a grade B actor. When I was a kid, he was one of the most popular movie stars in the United States. He didn't age too well, and that's when he went on to television. He was the host of the General Electric Theater. They paid for him, not only for that, but to go around making propaganda speeches about the Russians are coming. And then corporate America got together and decided, well, let's have an actor for president. At least he can deliver the commercials for us, which he did superbly well. That's the secret to that presidency. You have now George Bush, who can't make a speech, appears to be dyslexic, never read a book, has no comprehension of the world, never traveled. And so the country is governed by a group of Pentagon people, headed by the former chief of the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense, Mr. Cheney, the Vice President, is Chancellor of the country, and the current Secretary of Defense. Rumsfeld is part of this junta. We have a Pentagon government. Forget representative government. Everybody in Congress has been bought and paid for, quite openly. I was told that Bush and Gore spent $3 billion of corporate money on the last race for president. This is obscene. The people, of course, don't participate in these elections. They don't even bother to vote because they know it has nothing to do with them.
Gore, do you see elections as a form of entertainment with the results controlled by the media?
Well, they're not terribly entertaining. They get a little bit of personal scandals about the most they can do. No issue of the sort that I've been talking about here in Edinburgh can be mentioned by any politician. They can only talk about their private life, how much they love America, how much they value the great corporations that make our lives so happy and so rich. Not one of them would tell you why it is that since 1950 we have fought something like 60 wars, hot, cold, tepid, and not one was declared as our Constitution requires. So all those wars from Vietnam on have been illegal. No congressman, no senator, no president can ever mention that. It's a game. And those, a cui bono, as they say in the law, and obviously in Latin, who benefits? Well, corporate America does.
You said that there was a lot of interest in your work now because you were blacked out by the American universities and the media. Why do you think that was?
Because I wrote a book called The City on the Pillar, which said that same sexuality was a perfectly normal activity and only a nation of hysterics would make up laws against it. That applies to your countries too. More hysterics, and that's where we got it from. It's even in the legal codes, black. No, that was, I'd said the unsayable. There's certain things you can't say. We're a tightly censored country of people who are terrified of public opinion. I'm not, as you may have noticed.
Can I change the subject again by asking you, do you still feel that the film director has taken the place of the novelist?
I think so, probably. People will always want narratives, but a narrative is more accessible on a video cassette or in a movie theater or on television than having to read a book, particularly if you've had no education. We have practically no public education for the people at large. The children of the rich get good educations, the others don't. So reading is not a great popular pastime in the United States. Going to the movies is. I find when I go to universities, I was lecturing at Harvard a few years ago to a course in American civilization. You can imagine what a small department that was. But I had some very good graduate students, and but every now and then things would get a little boring. And no one ever mentioned a book. History they would mention, but no novel, no poetry, nothing. It's all right by me, but I was amazed that they showed no interest in literary culture. So when things got really slow, I'd say, well, has anybody seen The Doors? Well, the entire place, and half of them were Chinese, from China. Oh, yes, and there would be an enormous fight, those who liked The Doors and those who hated it. And everybody came alive. That's the lingua franca today, are the movies. And the directors are given credit, more credit than they deserve usually, because essentially a movie is written. But if you confuse the writers and put 9 names up there, nobody knows who created it.
There's a lot of political interest here at the moment on banned substances. Do you think the war on drugs is futile and having the same effect that prohibition had?
Well, of course, it's catastrophic. But there's so much money in it. There's money for the pushers, there's money for the mob, there's money for the politicians who are paid off, money for the police who get to resell the drugs or take them themselves. A sane society, which the United States is not, would have legalized all drugs. You had a great moment here in England back in, I think it was the 70s, when if you were a heroin addict, you got a prescription from your doctor, you went to the pharmacy and it would be filled. There was no crime, no great expense. And then a certain journalist found out that a doctor was giving it to people who didn't have proper prescriptions, or he was writing out false prescriptions. And they canceled that law. It was the first intelligent thing that had happened, and it had come out of England, of all places. With that, any hope of legalization died. Now the Dutch are leading the way in Europe on the softer drugs. But we're not going to have any peace in the world until everything is legalized and money be spent, instead of wars on drugs, on rehabilitation of addicts. That's far more important than forbidding it and playing cops and robbers.
Decriminalisation is rife in Europe at the moment. There's debates ensuing all the time here. Could you see this attitude being taken up in the United States?
It would be difficult because it's sin, you see, and we have a lot of fundamentalist Christians, mostly Protestant, but Catholics as well. And this is one of their biggest games. It's one of the ways they raise money. Fighting drugs, save our children. You know, they don't care about the children, they care about money. And as long as they have means of putting, you know, we have in America 6.6 million people in prison, on parole, or in what they call in-correction. That's 3% of the adult population. No other country has imprisoned for non-crimes, non-violent crimes, so many people. It's never been done. And they lose their civil rights, particularly the blacks. If they've been found guilty of a felony, they can never vote. What a brilliant way to get rid of them. But when you have a country that is as vicious as ours and as hostile to our government, you're going to get wars on drugs, you're going to get too many people in prison, and Timothy McVeigh is going to blow up a federal building.
Clinton, I think, changed the attitudes in the United States towards HIV after the Reagan and Bush administration. Do you think Bush Jr. now will return us to these dark ages of ignorance concerning this issue?
Probably. You see, you must realize we don't have a government. We don't have representative government. There's nobody who represents the interests of the people. The Congress represents the corporations that put them there. Bush and Gore represented the $3 billion that they got, the two of them, to run for president. There is nobody there. The New York Times is simply like Pravda. It's a voice for the ruling corporations. They like it the way it is. They want money. They don't care if everybody in the country dies of AIDS or of drugs or this or that. You have a totally disconnected ruling class comprising basically 1% of the country, which has all the money. 20% are doing well, and they work for the 1%. 80% are doing badly. So you're talking about how do we get to the 80% to get rid of the 21%? If I had the answer to that, I'd be leading an army.
Mr. Vidal, thank you so much for your time. It's been a privilege talking to you. Thank you.